One. Got a weird slate here tonight. It's actually like a kind of a tough slate, and I think there's going to be news that happens late that's probably going to open up things. We already have the two traded guys from Portland. We have a bunch of questionables. We also don't know if they're going to trade anybody else by the time that game rolls around because we got a week before the trade deadline here. So a lot of stuff to go through. I'll real quick go through my priorities, and then in chat, guys, go ahead and quickly pop on in and say what's up and say, ask any questions you want, because it's probably going to be a 20-minute to a half-hour show that we do. But you know that it's not my best doing it alone, so I love it when you guys are interactive and we can go back and forth on some things. Priorities. Well, one of Simon's, McCollum, or Nurkic, I feel like are good plays. It's funny because Simon's got completely shut down in this matchup, literally like two games ago, by Dort. And Dort, it can do that to people. But without Powell taking any shots, without even Covington being there, just extra minutes, really, more than anything, it's actually kind of like good to have a guy like Covington because he doesn't really do anything usage-wise. But I do like Simons because of the price the best. I think McCollum and Nurk are both good plays. But one of those two, you're going to play one of Goodwin or Osman probably in a good portion of your DraftKings lineups. I don't love it. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if either or both busted. But I do think that it's with what we have for value right now, they definitely make a lot of sense. Taylor or Brissett, I think makes a lot of sense from the indie side of things. Obviously, it's hard not to be biased towards my guy Taylor because he went off. But Brissett should get a lot of work in this game, and he's, I guess more of their priority. Taylor, given the minutes, I think will actually be more fantasy viable. He's a guy, he did really well in the G League. All that stuff. I think Bogdanovich, the Hawks Bogdanovich, is really interesting, especially every extra guy that might go out in that. We already lost Gallinari. We don't know about Lou Will. We don't know about John Collins. If everybody's out there, I think Bogdanovich becomes a really good play, and I really like Trae Young on FanDuel. On the other side of that game, it's the same guys. It's Siakam in order, though. Van Vliet, for me, Van Vliet, Siakam, Trent, Barnes, and Anunoby, factoring in everything. I like all of them. That's the order I would go with. I like Jalen Green a lot today. And then I like the Bulls situation. And I even like the Bulls value a little bit, given the slate we have with both Javonte Green and Troy Brown potentially, as well as Desonmu, who's not quite a value, but he's a little bit cheaper. He's just playing a bunch of minutes and less excited about that play. And I think he's going to be pretty popular. But Kobe White, we'll see. I guess we still have him as questionable. That's what I have on my sheet here. It looks like, we've got Kobe White, tentatively is in, but that's an interesting spot. Murray is probably my favorite spend up, unless I'm doing a little mini stack, which I love the Embiid and Luka mini stack. I think that's one I'm going to definitely get a lot of exposure to. And I think that you can win a tournament with those two guys if you get the other pieces right. You can play pretty chalky with the other guys. You're going to have to reach for some value, but if the value gets there, those guys could both, put up 70 plus and literally win you a slate, and they could be the highest scoring two players on this slate. I think that's very possible. One of Kessler Edwards, Kyrie, or Patty Mills. I actually like Patty Mills the best. I think people are like, I like Kyrie fine here, but I think it's getting a little bit overrated as a play, to be honest. I think his ownership is going to probably steer me a little bit clearer. Play him a little bit on FanDuel. That's what I've got currently going, but I don't love this. Like, I would prefer Murray over Kyrie all day, every day. I don't care who scores more tonight. You're talking about, like, Kyrie has a ceiling. We know that, but we haven't seen anything resembling it. And seems very scoring dependent. You've also still got other guys out there like Patty Mills who can do stuff for you. You've got potential blowout risk with Donovan Mitchell back. Donovan Mitchell is like the epitome of what makes a great tournament play. We don't know how many minutes, but he's coming back from a concussion. I think Donovan Mitchell doesn't tend to come and play like 30 minutes. I think we're going to see minutes out of Mitchell. And I think if he's going, he could be an awesome, awesome tournament play tonight at very, very non-existent ownership. So I really like Donovan Mitchell. So those are sort of my priorities. Other ones I'm considering, one of Love, Mobley, or Allen. I think Mobley's probably the best play, but I like Love as well. And I think Jared Allen has massive steal block upside on FanDuel. Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart are two guys who I think very highly of today, especially Jaylen Brown, and I don't think that's going to be popular. Corey Joseph is another guy we can include in the mix. I actually think Corey Joseph versus Goodwin is probably a little closer than it's being made out to be, and Trey Mann is in that same conversation. But I don't think Joseph is that far behind these guys, and I think the ownership will show that he is significantly lower owned. And I don't mind it because I don't even expect it's just a 25 fantasy points and go home and go about your day. And then every now and then you get the little bit of a extra effort from him. Frank Jackson went crazy yesterday, and that's why he didn't really have a big game. But I still think Corey Joseph is viable as a pivot off of those guys. Those are my main ownerships. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing now because every bit of news is going to change everything. The Cavs starting lineup is exactly the same. Goodwin, Okoro, Osman, Mobley, and Allen. I'm just saying, it's not like Goodwin is locked into playing all these minutes. And by the way, it took him like an awesome fourth quarter to get there last time. He did take away the assist upside from Okoro. I'm sorry, from Osman. But it's not like Brian Goodwin is this great shot creator. Maybe this is the spot where we might see a little more Rondo. And that might be a large field play, but I just am saying, I don't think this is like a lock for Goodwin. That not a lock, but I just don't think that you need to play him. But I do think he's an interesting play at the very least. All right, let's get into some questions. Thanks a lot, Carmen, for the win. I appreciate that. Hopefully we can do it again tonight. We got the big 3180 on DraftKings, so that would be 125K. That would be a nice one to take down. Do I like Vooch or DeRozan more? Yeah, I answered that one already. I like DeRozan followed by Vooch. I think he's a slightly better play, but I like Vooch just fine. It is a back-to-back for them, and Vooch has had some historically not been great on back-to-backs, whereas DeRozan hasn't seemed to affect him quite as much. But we've seen a couple of good back-to-backs from Vooch as well. So I don't want to write him off. I think both those guys get a boost for sure. If Kobe White were out, also they'd get a real boost. Kobe White is actually viable, but I'm not probably going to get to him. Nice. Thanks. Nicholas always loves my LA stuff. Yeah, it is. So the FanDuel priorities are fairly similar. Goodwin over there. Giddey's more in play over there. Jaylen Brown's a better play over there. Karis LeVert's a better play over there. Bojan Bogdanovic, not who on DraftKings you have 6,200 Bojan and 5K Bogdanovic. And on FanDuel, it's basically reverse, 6K for Bogdan and 651 for Bojan. So I think that that's just the way I would switch those guys up. Osman, a better play over there at 4,300. Obviously, I have Thaddeus Young in my shell lineup. It just makes me nervous because I'm not going to play him, but it makes me nervous to just see that I still have to edit those because sometimes I end up forgetting and leaving it, and I need to make sure to edit that. Darius Baisley in play on both sides. He's okay over there on FanDuel. I like Jokic better on FanDuel because the price is easier to get in. Still like Van Vliet, Siakam, and Kyrie I like a little better, as well as Trae Young. So those would be my only differences, my only amendments to the guys I named. Do I like McLemore? It's hard to know what's going to happen with Portland, which again is going to speak to the same thing we talk about every day, right? Like we need to wait for the later stuff. We don't know if Watford or Nance are going to be playing. Reggie Perry may get a bunch of minutes, and UT kid, don't know a ton about him. I don't know. McLemore with Dennis Smith still around, Simons and McCollum, it's not like they're going to play all those guys together. So I don't really see how, unless Ben McLemore, it's just a random Ben McLemore night. It actually doesn't really help him much, to be honest with you, with Ellaby back, with Perry back. I think Ellaby is probably the better play between the two of those two. In fact, I got to make a note to where I'm going to leave in where I was leaving in some of my old. If I needed a 1v1 swap on a build I loved, I don't mind using Ellaby as opposed to Thaddeus Young because Thaddeus Young is no longer in play. I love the idea of playing Larry Nance. By the way, I just can't get my head around how many minutes he'll play. I do think that there's always going to be a lot of upside. I think he's a guy we're going to have to look for going forward from here on out. I just said all my FanDuel things. So give me a 2v2 or 1v1 or something. I just named all my favorite FanDuel stuff, so I don't really have anything else to add. Value forwards on DK is a good question. What value are you looking for? In the 5K range, it's Patty Mills and Chetty Osman. In the 4K range, it's the Brissett or Taylor. In the 3K range, it's Javonte Green, Josh Richardson, and sadly, LOB and Vassell is a 4K range guy. But Troy Brown, Javonte Green, I think are both interesting, especially if we hear anything about Kobe White being out. Those guys could both play some serious minutes tonight because the Bulls are getting kind of thin. Kessler Edwards is another value play that everyone else seems to love. I actually like Edwards in real life, and I've defended him. I don't know how much I love this play here of Edwards. I'm using him as a placeholder, but he's mostly in lineups where I've got 4 guys in the late games where I can do some switching, which has really paid off, as you guys know, over this last week or so. I do like Nurkic, but I don't think that there's no, like, he's not a priority play, but he's fine. I would have him rated about 35th on the list of my top plays. I don't have any interest in Lance tonight. If you notice, I mean, as I said before, when Lance first signed with them, I said, just keep an eye out. He's going to go off at home sometimes. I'm trying to look through his games. I don't think he's had a game that's even acceptable on the road that we would take him. So I can't get behind the Lance play. He hasn't had one acceptable game on the road where he'd be even somewhat viable. And it's not like they're down an extra body. They actually got a body back in Brissett. So his minutes should actually be lessened. I do love Lance, as you guys know. It just makes no sense to me to play him today. But especially with the point guard and shooting guard where it is, like, it's not, even if he puts up like 30, one of these other guards, even though I think they're all suspect, is probably going to put up 30 plus. So he has to act like hit like a realistic ceiling. You need like foul trouble from both Duarte and LeVert in order for him to have a chance. And that's just a weird thing to try to play on a 9-game slate. So I would rate the Lance play today as being pretty terrible. But again, if you're playing 150, I think he might make one of mine. If that's where I would be at on Lance. Kessler is just like, this is not like some sort of lock play. I mean, these guys are gone. This has happened before. We've seen some of these guys fail when they had they didn't even have Kyrie either. And they didn't have Griffin or Claxton. I think Claxton, by the way, is a great long shot tournament play. I like Barnes a little bit better than Anunoby, but I don't think that neither of them are priorities for me. They're last pieces in, or they're parts of mini game stacks for me. That's my bad. The Pacers are at home. I actually didn't even realize that. I totally messed that up. So maybe if I played 150, Lance would then be in 2 of my lineups. Good point, though, Kobe. For some reason, I had it as Chicago. You're completely right. It is definitely in Indy. Weird thing about this game, I believe Chicago was actually like, it only changed, but they're only a 1-point favorite. I love Chicago today to win, by the way. I'll just take the money line, whatever. It's a 1 point, or take the whatever, lay the 1. Anyway, sorry, getting back to it. The questions are popping in. That was my mistake. Favorite overall FanDuel spend up is Murray. I don't have any player above 10K other than Jokic is by far the best spend up on FanDuel. I don't think that's even close. Jokic is like, if you're going to spend up on anybody, it's astronomically Jokic on FanDuel. I don't even think there's like another guy who even is in the conversation except for Embiid and Luka. And those are only because, you have an ESPN game with 2 great players and all that stuff going back and forth. If Seth Curry could still be out, that would even be another boost to Embiid. You have everybody out you have Hardaway and Porzingis out for Dallas. So I do like those. Those would be the only guys I would consider on FanDuel ahead of or in contention with Jokic. But Jokic is pretty clear in a way the best spend up. I do think Murray's a really good play, but I think Jokic is. I mean, think about it like this: like you have a more loaded position at guard. Well, actually, it's not as loaded as it usually is today. So maybe actually that could even be an argument for Murray. I do like Murray. Don't get me wrong. But it's kind of weird. Like they're $700 apart. and Murray's going to be 40% owned and Jokic will be 20% owned, I guess I'm going to play Jokic. Like, I just think that's a better play. But I am going to play some Murray, and I will have some of them together. So I don't think anything's wrong with any of that. Giddy for a DK I actually love that, Garrett. It's one of my favorite things to do is the guys who were not playing on one side. I don't think there's no way I'm not getting to him on DraftKings. But when we're going to play a guy on another side, even though he's a much cheaper price tag, if you just switch sites and like you go from getting 40% ownership to like 3% or 2% ownership, that's just a good play. I mean, he could put up 50 here. Absolutely. So I kind of like that. No viable Pelicans at all for me. Sure, somebody may get there. I don't see any reason to play a Pelican. Jokic on DK or keeping him on FanDuel. No, I do like Jokic on DK a little bit. But I found myself sort of liking the Luka versus Embiid. And I think Jokic is a better straight up play than Embiid. But I think if I'm playing Luka, you're sort of hoping for a close game. And in a close game, I don't see anybody who can guard him. So like straight up, Jokic is probably a better play, but I have more of that little back and forth in that game with Embiid. But I do think Jokic is definitely in play on DraftKings. I mean, there's not going to be a slate Jokic, even if he's 13K, that I won't say that Jokic is a really, really good play. Like he basically, what does he average, 70 against these guys so far this season? I actually don't like this matchup as much for him, even though he's put up 70 so far in the previous ones. But it's Jokic. He's going to put up 60 to 95 or 93 and a half, whatever he put up. KPJ is an interesting tournament option. I actually like that play. They just won't give him quite the full run, but he's got a 50 coming to him pretty soon. So I have no problem if you want to play KPJ. I named 30 guys. He wasn't one of my priorities, but he is in a couple of my lineups. And I'm trying to get rid of guys, not add guys. So the Carnes, I love you, buddy. He's just going to go straight with him into the 555. And you know what? It could work out, especially with it being at home. I didn't realize I just totally goofed on that one. But I do think that like if you're going to take just the big shot, take the big shot. I don't see this being an especially great one for Lance, but you never know. Like it could. There's a lot of ways it could go where the other guys it's going to take the same kind of thing, though. It's like the reasons he's gone off are he got crazy hot or LeVert and someone else got in foul trouble. So you're asking for a really weird game script, and then you need him to perform exceptionally against a good overall team, although their defense is really weak without the two best defenders on their team, Ball and Caruso. Jalen Green, absolutely. I have no problem with Jalen Green on either side. I actually like him. He is one of the 25 best plays on the slate, in my opinion. And I think we're going to start seeing some 40s and stuff out of Jalen Green in the not too distant future. And we've seen what guards have done. It's so bizarre to me because like DeJounte Murray and Derek White are known as being good defensive guards. And all these teams do is just get torched by every guard every time. Same thing with like Shea. He gets torched every time he plays a good point guard. So I don't know. It's a funny situation. But yeah, I like all of these names that are being mentioned. It's just a lot of guys, and all the value today to me feels very suspect. Like some of these guys are going to get there. I'm using some of it, but it may be a little bit better to balance builds to late stack because we're probably going to get some late value. Like yesterday, you know what was really interesting just to show you how bad people are. No one played Davion Mitchell. Like he was like 6 or 7% owned in the big buy-in stuff. That's crazy. Reggie Jackson was barely owned. These guys both, and I tried to jam those guys in together, but at the same time, we kind of knew that Fox probably wasn't going to play, and no one wanted to speculate on that. Even Halliburton wasn't owned; he didn't do much. But I just think like you gotta take some shots and make some plays on in case this guy doesn't play, in case XYZ does happen. But just have your pivots ready. Even Serge Ibaka after the news, I was like, did nobody stack the late games? Well, that's why I played Zubac in like 30% of my DK lineups yesterday and all my good lineups. But I just, I switched over. I made a couple 2v2 swaps and I was able to get in some Batum, to get in some, which wasn't like the best, but it was, but then I got a bunch of Ibaka and a bunch of Reggie Jackson and Mitchell. And that late switch swapping can absolutely win you tournaments. I mean, almost won the $4 tournament somehow last night. I didn't even realize this morning, but that was sort of funny. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to get out of here because I got to finish. I got some lineups to build. Really do appreciate you all for being here, and let's kill it tonight. I will be in Discord as much as I can. Let's get it. Good luck, everybody.